Hello and welcome back to the True Crime Guys podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
How's everybody doing? Are you ready for a two-parter heavy hitter serial killer this week?
Yes. We're just rolling. We got some good momentum talking that serial killer last week, right? Mm-hmm. So we're like, let's get back to our roots. Let's do another serial killer. Let's ride this wave. Yeah,
and we're going to go up to Canada and cover a recent serial killer who kind of broke the mold. Kind of a throwback, but also in the modern age. I mean, this is a guy you would think by looking through his crimes and everything, this would have occurred in the 70s, but no, just happened a few years ago, and also broke the mold with his age when he really started serial killing. This guy was a late bloomer, big time.
Very. The average serial killer starts around age 28. This guy was what, in his 50s?
Yeah. But he spent a lot of years living a lie, living in the closet. That was the era that he grew up in. We'll get into all that. Raised by a fanatical, very religious family, and being a young gay man and having to hide that, and had a show wife and family for a long time, and then finally, after his divorce, just became who he really wanted to be and started going crazy with it.
Yeah, that's an understatement,
to say the least. Yeah,
I'm surprised. Honestly, as brutal as he was, it's surprising he kept that shit in the box for 50 years. Or, he probably started feeling urges when most of the serial killers do, in their late 20s, early 30s. Mm-hmm. And somehow he was able to keep that under wraps, as far as we know.
I was going to say, that being said, there's also the possibility that, there's more bodies out there.
Mm-hmm. So. Because, with an alibi, being a married man and being part of the community, being religious, all that, he had even a better alibi before. Once he divorced, he's a little more of a sitting duck. But before then... Man, he had some pretty good alibis.
This is a guy that was Santa Claus at the mall here. He's a bit of a poor man's John Wayne Gacy in Canada, really.
Yeah, that's so creepy, dude.
John Wayne had the whole clown thing going. This guy was being fucking Santa, and he was perfect for it. When you look at him, he's got that rosy red face, the white beard.
And even his voice wasn't threatening. Like, nothing about this man was threatening. Like, when you hear him talk, his demeanor, his body language, his build, nothing was really threatening.
Big advantage for a serial killer to be non-threatening.
Exactly.
Let's get into it. We're giving away too much.
Let's do it, man.
Okay, sir, and your name is?
Bruce McArthur.
And if you could spell it for me, please.
B-R-U-C-E, and McArthur, M-C-A-R-T-H-U-R.
Okay, sir. So, an allegation has been made against you, and this officer in just a moment is going to let you know exactly what that allegation is, okay?
So the allegations are that around 6:30 p.m. this evening, you met up with a gentleman by the name of at the intersection of Bathurst and Finch. During the course of your involvement with him, there was an allegation made of assault, which in choking was the allegation made. And that's basically why you're under arrest today, for that assault.
Okay. So, sir, if you would like to provide us with your account of what occurred earlier this evening.
Well, we talked about going for dinner, and he said he needed to take a shower, so I said I'd meet him at the Tim Hortons at Finch and Bathurst. And so he arrived, and we were going to have sex, and he suggested doing in the back of his truck, since it hadn't been used yet. It was a brand new truck. I said, well, there's more room in the back of my van. So we went to my van. And we started kissing. And I put my hand down his pants, and he wanted me to squeeze his penis. But then he said he wanted harder, to pinch it, to pinch as hard as I could. So I did. And he got aroused by that. And so then I thought, okay, he likes it rough. So I put my hand to his throat, and just for a few seconds, because before that he's very strong, he just completely turned around and grabbed me by the throat. He said, now I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to you. And he had me by the throat to the point that I couldn't breathe. So I put my hands up in the air like surrender, because I couldn't talk. And that's when he finally let go. And then he jumped out of the car. He said, I don't want to see you again. So I sat there because I was kind of out of breath, and I thought he was getting in his car to leave because he started the car and was running. I could hear it running because he was parked right beside me. And the next thing I heard him say, it's 911 or whatever. And so I thought, oh gosh, he's calling the cops. And so I got out, and then he got out and walked around and was taking my license plate and that. And so that's when I got kind of uptight, and I got in the car and I drove off. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, well, I should go and give my side of it, but I could not think for life where a police station was in that area. So the only one I could think of was downtown, but then I realized there's one somewhere in Eglinton, and that's where I drove to.
Has anything like this ever happened before, where things got out of hand?
Not like that. No, not that quickly. Or not just like that.
Okay. Things have never gotten violent?
No.
Okay. What part of the van were you in when this happened? Back seat. Like the back seat or like the very back of?
Well, there's only one seat. Actually, the seats are all except for one seat. One bucket seat is in there.
Okay.
So there's quite a bit of room.
And what was your reason for bringing your hands up to his neck? What was your understanding?
I thought he liked it rough.
Okay.
He was getting off on that.
Okay, sir. Just before we conclude, is there anything else you feel might be important to tell us before we end the interview?
Like what? I don't know what the else would be.
We always give people an opportunity to say something that maybe we haven't asked before we conclude.
I don't know. We had sex, numerous times. I never had a problem.
Sure. Okay. Great. Time that I have is.
All right, let's get into Bruce McArthur. Let us walk you through the most recent and brutal serial killer to stalk the streets of Toronto. If you guys remember, a few years ago in 2018, we started getting reports down here in America about a possible serial killer in Toronto and other body parts being found in planters. These reports, however, only really started across our borders once the gruesome details began to emerge. The American true crime buffs caught on to the scent of a new serial killer emerging on the scene. This would wind up being our case this week.
Yeah.
Bruce McArthur. Because in January of 2018, the Toronto police finally apprehended the man who had been terrorizing the local gay community for the past 8 years. And the gay community in Toronto was like, we've been fucking telling you. They were going nuts, like trying to push the police to investigate this harder. And that's a whole their rabbit hole will go down in part 2.
No doubt.
The investigation into the actual police investigation itself, where people basically were pointing fingers and saying that there was racism involved and why they weren't, because a lot of these victims were of Muslim descent, and also coming from the gay world as well. So people were saying that they weren't investigating due to these things. So that man being the one that we are discussing today, and if you haven't heard about the guy already, that's because his crimes are still being brought to light to this day for the public to analyze. It's still so fresh. I mean, him being convicted in 2018, it's only a few years ago, and there's still speculation that there's more victims out there that are going to be connected to him.
Man, I don't know. I don't know if there are going to be more victims, honestly, because all of his properties were searched, and all of the victims that went missing in that area were all accounted for, on his property as far as remains and whatnot.
His property at the time when he was 69, though, he had a whole other life with a family many years prior in the 80s, 90s. I mean, there could have been some highway dumps like we saw with Randy Kraft back in the day, where he went out to a gay bar, killed a guy, dumped him somewhere, and the body was found but never connected to a killer.
No doubt.
Who knows?
That's a possibility. Always. Yeah. Like we said, it's just super rare that someone would wait 50 years to act on these impulses.
So without further ado, let's get into the life, the crimes, and the investigation that lasted much longer than it ever should have, and dive into Thomas Donald Bruce McArthur, who was born on October 8th, Yeah, that's a lot of names, right?
Does he need some more first names, please? Can we throw a few more in there? Jesus.
You can kind of assemble your own name however you want there.
Yeah, really.
We could go with Donald MacArthur, Thomas Bruce
right.
Thomas, really, whatever you want to do.
Seriously.
It's perfect for a serial killer. Once again, you could just go around making new aliases out of your own names. Just reassemble names.
Yeah, just out
and
of
he wouldn't even be lying. He'd be like, technically, these are my names.
Right. It wouldn't even be that hard to remember.
Right. So he was born on October 8th, 1951 in the town of Lindsay, Ontario, to parents Islay and Malcolm, or Mac MacArthur. He shares a birthday with Bruno Mars, Nick Cannon, Matt Damon, and Sigourney Weaver.
Jesus.
A couple of great musicians, current day pop stars.
Yeah, what a crew.
Yeah, and Matt Damon.
What? What's wrong with that? You talk like he's like the subpar person. He's probably the richest person in this group, right? Aside from maybe Bruno Mars. I don't know. Bruno Mars
Bruno's killing it. I've heard he's a great tipper, too. So I actually have a neighbor who's been a dealer on the Strip for many, many years. Older man. Really nice guy. And Bruno Mars rolls into the casino he works at on a regular basis and fucking just blows everybody up with tips.
Wow. So, I don't doubt it.
Get on him. That's pretty cool, man. He makes these people's weeks with his tips. Basically made it worth their whole week of going to work, just the tip he drops on them in one night.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. He's killing it. And then he's got that new group now, Silk Sonic with Anderson .Paak. Like, he's killing it. He's staying relevant. Props to him.
Yeah. So Bruce would then move in with his parents and sister to live in a farm in Argyle, which is near Woodville, about 60 kilometers north of Oshawa. The farm would serve not only as his home, but somewhat as a foster home for other troubled children that would come to stay and work with his parents. So they had a thing going where kids that were having trouble, they could be sent to this guy, the MacArthur farm, and basically it's almost like a reform school, if you will, or a military academy almost in a sense. That's how strict Bruce McArthur's parents were, that the other bad kids were sent to the MacArthur farm to be straightened out, basically.
Yeah, and it's a great way to get some free labor as well. So let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, how big was this farm? This is a great way to kill two birds, one stone, right? Do some community service while your farm's getting taken care of by kids.
Yeah, and their whole program was essentially hard work. So just get out there and work.
Yeah, just dig holes,
and that'll fix your bad behavior.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, in a sense, it's not entirely incorrect, assuming they weren't beating these kids. A little discipline and some structure. That's why the military reforms so many young lost people. The military sometimes it backfires, but oftentimes, people that are kind of lost, young people that don't have any direction and they're acting out, sometimes that the structure just really fits them and it works.
Well, I mean, they don't have time to act out, if you join the military or if you did this.
Nor do you on a farm, on a real farm.
You don't have time to act out. You're working sun up to sundown. There's always something to do.
There's no idle hands, basically.
Right, exactly.
And we know those are the devil's playground, them idle hands.
That's right.
So the farm usually had between 6 and 10 kids, and the children would be sent by their families to learn discipline and the value of hard work. These children would work on the farm during the days during chores as a way to pay for their room and board. Bruce's mother, Islay, was a devout Irish Catholic, and his father, Malcolm, was a devout Scottish Protestant. And these religious divisions often led to loud arguments between his parents.
Can you imagine?
That's different than the arguments my parents had growing up.
An Irish Catholic and a Scottish
It was usually about my dad going out too long and being with his friends at the bar or whatever.
Oh,
whereas
okay, yeah.
This is more like just, arguments about finer points of the Bible and whatnot.
Yeah, this is something that's not talked about a lot. There's a lot of marriages where people practice completely different religions, and that kind of blows me away, honestly, because most religions demand so much from you. They demand that you give up so much. They demand these certain sacrifices. And if your spouse is not on the same page as you, they're like, why are we doing this? Why are we giving 10% to the church?
It's hard enough having a household where like you had a Cowboys fan wife and a Packer fan husband. That's hard enough trying to decide what your kids are going to be.
Right.
Because obviously they're both trying to influence them as far as getting them on their side. So
right. Now imagine
a whole other beast.
Imagine if you tied your purpose on earth to your football team. Yeah,
well, there's a lot of people that do.
Let's
be honest. There's a lot of Raider fans whose whole identity is the Raiders. It's really kind of sad.
Well, they spent a lot of money on that face paint, bro. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Yeah, that's silver and black, man. That shit's not cheap. You got to do
it's a whole vibe. It's a whole identity, man. You're a Raider fan. It's who you are.
Speaking of, I'm going to see if Andy will send me a picture of him and his brother. They do that. They get when Raiders come to Charlotte, they get all dressed up in like full Raider garb. They're like,
is he the guy with the spikes on the shoulders and stuff?
Oh yeah, you can't recognize him. He's full out, man. He's full out Raider. I know he's got some pictures of a few games he's been to. I'm gonna see if he'll send them to us. We'll put them up during this show. Give you an example of some crazy Raider fans.
These Raider fans take it too far.
They do. No, speaking of Andy, thanks for writing this timeline, bud.
Yeah, absolutely. Great job, Andy. So Bruce, during these arguments, would often take his mother's side, causing tension between himself and his father. I feel like that's normal early on for boys to take their mother's side early on. And then as they get older, and then they get hormonal, they get testosterone flowing in their teen years, then they start having issues with their mom and more tend to go towards their dad. It seems pretty common.
Right.
That's
well, their moms feel like they're losing them a little bit, right? They're interested in other women now.
Yes.
Yeah, or men, or just interested in other people. So, you never know.
There's a weird moment of jealousy from moms when their sons get a girlfriend, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a little weird.
Well, I mean, dads and daughters, too. I mean, hold up now.
True.
It's just as bad.
We're not innocent either.
No. It's just as bad. It's just, if not worse. Right.
So despite the arguments, the strict rules that the family had to follow, there were never any claims of any type of mistreatment from the children who passed through the farm, nor from Bruce or his sister. So didn't seem as though there was any real physical or verbal abuse going on, just very strict set of rules for the children and expectations, which I'm sure most of the kids follow suit because what else were they going to do? Like we said, idle hands, devil's playground. There was not much else going on for them. So
exactly,
it was easier to follow suit.
Yeah, and I'm sure the tasks that they were given were not very difficult tasks. Just long hours, just doing the same type of thing over and over again. Monotonous tasks. Yeah.
To Bruce's claims, however, he believes his father may have picked up on some of his homosexuality early on, leading to more tension between the two as he grew into his teens. So he thinks his father started to get a vibe of, his preference and not preference, sexuality. He was born that way, but his father picked up on it, and he thinks his father mistreated him a bit or treated him differently because of it.
That's a possibility.
If his father did believe that, then he absolutely would, knowing their background and the time period and all that. It was not really going to be accepted in this household to be gay. That was one of the worst things that you could do.
Exactly. And a father who feels this way about homosexuality, who's so prejudiced against homosexuality, is going to be looking for these different things, right? He's going to be like, why does he always want to play with Justin and he never wants to do any chores with Brittany? Like, what? This is weird. Fathers are picking up on that type of thing, and I'm sure he made him feel like shit for it too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of verbal abuse among gay homosexual serial killers rather. At least that's what we've noticed over the years.
So this was rural Canada in the 1960s, and there were also two very devout religious parents that Bruce was being raised by. As kind of people his parents were, the attitudes toward homosexuality at the time were not the same as they are today. This led to a lot of shame and repression from Bruce, and as a desperate need, he had the desperate need to please his father as he got older.
Yeah.
His need to please his father would also carry over into his schooling, as he had remembered by classmates as a teacher's pet and a suck-up, always tattling on his fellow classmates anytime anything happened. That's not a quick way to make friends.
Ah, dude, come on. Don't be a snitch.
Yeah.
Ah, jeez.
He attended a one-room schoolhouse during his early schooling, and which made it even harder for him to make friends with the fellow boys around his age. Yeah, if you're tattling on everybody and you're in a tiny little schoolroom with only a handful of kids, everybody knows at this point. There's no hiding from it.
They're just over there standing at the corner glaring at him.
Right.
You son of a bitch. We're going to kick your ass at recess. It's like they can see you, bro. Where are they going to go? There is no principal's office.
No. It would be, however, during this time at primary or secondary school, which would be high school for us in the U.S., that he met up with a woman he would eventually have his first real long-lasting relationship with, Janice Campbell, who would graduate the same year as Bruce in 1970 and go on to marry him when he was 23 years old. And
okay, so he's trying to play the part.
He was doing this as a means to, basically play the part, like you said, in society and try to hide the fact that he was gay.
Right.
Very common for gay men at the time who didn't feel comfortable coming out for obvious reasons, and would basically just go forth living a lie, almost basically forced to by society.
Indeed.
But despite being in the closet all this time, Bruce and Janice would go on to have 2 children of their own together, 1 girl and 1 boy, who we will mention later on as having a bit too much of his old father in him. So showing some disturbing tendencies, his boy, later on in life.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't know about this. About that later.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear about this. Okay.
Tragedy would first strike Bruce, however, in the mid-1970s when his father was diagnosed with a brain tumor. He would be sent to live out the rest of his life in a nursing home, and his mother would actually start to date another man during this time. This new relationship would be short-lived, however, as in 1978, his mother would die herself from cancer. The following not far behind would be his father in 1981, who finally succumbed to his brain tumor. And this was all by the time Bruce was 30. So he lost both of his parents to cancer by the time he was 30.
Wow.
And in a short window of time, like a 3-year span, he lost both of them.
Right. Wow. That's tough.
Yeah. He's living a tough life. I mean, he's, growing up on a farm with a lot of structure, and he's hiding who he truly is as a young gay man, having to get married and play out the whole family thing. And now his parents die by the time he's 30.
You got to imagine,
you can see how he's building up. He's just storing all this, it's almost like, now that I think about it, it's like he had a midlife crisis at 50. A lot of people, they do what they've always wanted to do when they get that age where they feel like, you know what, I'm going to die at some point. What am I doing? And I feel like it sounds crazy as shit because he's a serial killer, but he started acting out his fantasies at 50 during a midlife crisis, clearly.
I'm surprised, honestly, after his parents died, he didn't just start then, because
what else did he have to? He didn't have to impress his father anymore. He was
exactly.
Gone.
And a lot of these gay men who put on this facade, usually it's for their families. It's not for strangers. They don't care. Yeah. As far as what strangers think, it's usually for their fathers or for their mothers or for their grandparents. It's 100%. For their family. And now his whole family is gone, and he still holds this charade up for 20 years.
Well, I refuse to believe that he wasn't at least, making up excuses on the weekends and stuff and going to gay bars. I'm sure he was at some point throughout his marriage early on, even when his parents were still alive. He had to have been. But yeah, I'm surprised he didn't just go fully into, I'm out of the closet and gay and all that stuff as soon as his parents died, like you said.
What do you have to lose at that point?
Yeah. In 1979, he and Janice would move together to Oshawa, where they would remain together until their eventual divorce. It was around this same time that Bruce would take a job as a traveling salesman for a clothing company called McGregor Socks.
What a perfect job.
Who the fuck is that guy? You want to buy these socks? You buy these fucking socks or I'll knock you out, mate.
Right. That's what McGregor's gonna be selling socks if he don't start winning fights again.
He made enough money off that whiskey deal to get him by for a while.
No doubt.
All right. But yeah, I mean, once again, I find it hard to believe that it's not possible that there's some more victims out there. The traveling salesman is perfect for a serial killer to get rid of some,
especially while you're married. Especially while you're married. You have so many excuses. I mean, it's almost as good as a trucker. It really is. As far as your excuse to be anywhere, your excuse to be stuck anywhere, I mean, it's now that I know that this was his job at this time, there's no way he didn't dabble in some gay bars and whatnot, like you say, maybe rent a hotel for a night before it escalated to the violence that it ends up coming to.
Right. So despite having recently lost both of his parents and also with his family growing larger, Bruce would go out on his sales trips alone for extended periods of time, and this would leave police to later question whether or not he may have started having affairs while out on the road, or if he'd possibly began killing back then, as we just kind of,
You have to consider that. You have to. I mean, because that was the perfect age too, right? He's 30. He just turned 30. It's just a prime time, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And the 80s in America, bodies were popping up all over the place. The era of the serial killer, easily could have just dumped some bodies across different state lines. Oh, yeah, Canada, North America, whatever.
Yeah.
Similar enough during this time. Easily, it's so many rural parts of Canada that you could have just thrown bodies into the woods or whatever. And if you're... if your victims are, gay men during the 80s, they're not searched for like we've mentioned many times in the past, most of our successful serial killers, targeted gay men at bars because the police would basically look for a day and then just move on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they must have ran off or whatever. You know how they live these lifestyles, that whole thing. I'm sure it was no different up there.
Absolutely not.
However, during the majority of the 80s, Bruce seemed to live somewhat of a normal life on the surface, with his family in Oshawa in a very similar sense to BTK. Bruce would heavily involve himself in his church with small groups to help try and keep himself occupied and away from the urges he had been forced to hide. It wouldn't be until the early 1990s that the facade Bruce had been putting up for the majority of his life would begin to crumble away. It would be at some point around this time that he would get caught having several affairs with men by his wife, leading to his eventual coming out to her. So you have to believe he was doing it the whole time, but he just got more brash over the years. I bet he was doing it in the 80s, but he just got more cocky.
Yeah, he was definitely doing it before his wife caught him. So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty... Like I say, I just don't think it escalated quite to that level of violence. Maybe it was more of a rough type of sex, but maybe not, killing people during sex at this time. Maybe, who knows, though? Like you say, he's out traveling, he's on his own. A lot of possibilities here, and of course he's never gonna admit to those. Absolutely not. I mean, he didn't even admit to the stuff he got caught red-handed for, so he's never gonna admit to that pre-stuff.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe he even all of his murders it's possible that he just liked the roughness, like he just was too rough. Quite often, I don't know if he even was intending to kill all of them, or if it just happened because he just got out of hand. Like, it almost seems like it was that type of murder where it was like not so much a product killer where he wanted the body afterwards, more so just like he liked the domination and was far too rough with them and didn't know when to stop and was like, shit, I did it again type of thing.
I don't know. I might would be inclined to believe that if I didn't know how he was caught. Remember how he's caught? I know we probably won't get to it in this episode. It'll probably be next episode. But the way he was caught with that victim, he was trying to kill that man. Over the head. He was trying to kill that man. You don't put a bag over the head with duct tape. You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough. Touche.
Yeah.
That goes beyond the line of rough sex for sure.
Yeah. There's too rough, and then there's I definitely can't breathe. No possible way I'm ever going to breathe.
Right.
Yeah. Which is what the situation this guy was in. So.
Yeah. So even after Bruce's wife, caught him with several men, they would remain together, married, and live together for the next few years, probably for the sake of the family and children. But it would also be in 1993 when Bruce would lose his job in clothing sales and further strain their relationship. And despite them trying their best to hold the family together, the two would be under incredible financial stress from Bruce no longer having a sales job. And in 1997, they would have to mortgage their home and try to cover their debts. But eventually they had to declare bankruptcy in 1999. And at that point, there was no point in keeping this marriage together. I mean,
right.
Kids were getting older. It was like, why keep this facade up? And it was in 1997 that the couple began the process of separating from one another. Bruce would then move away from his wife and children from Oshawa to live in Toronto, as Toronto had a much larger gay community than anywhere else nearby. But it would be when Bruce arrived in Toronto that something inside him would be unlocked. And this is when this midlife crisis hit. It's like he lost his parents. We talked about how he didn't have a lot of his life, and the lie he was living was for his father. He didn't want to disappoint him.
Right. His
father's been dead for a while now, and now he had his family to kind of keep that thing going. Now that's gone. He's moved away from them. They're divorced. He's lost all of anything he had financially going for himself. So what does he have to lose at this point? And Nothing. He just dives headfirst into a gay lifestyle he probably wanted to have for many years.
Right, and now he's in a community where it's not necessarily openly accepted, but it's a lot more accepted, at least in this area of Toronto, right? Because when you look at pictures of this district of Toronto where he did most of these killings, I mean, they had rainbow crosswalks in the streets, rainbow flags on every building. They were very
Perhaps
open
it was
and
the
accepting.
San Francisco of Canada at the time.
Yeah, it did kind of seem like that. that. So, maybe that kind of emboldened him a little bit. He's like, wow, I mean, I can be my normal self just out on the street. So maybe when I get in private, I can be who I really want to be and take it the next level.
Yeah. It's just sad he couldn't just go on living a happy gay lifestyle like many do. And, but instead he had to turn it violent. He just
way
out of control.
You know how you said that he may have choked people on accident? Maybe that's how it started, right? Maybe
we always see that. Almost always the first killing is an accident, right? And many serial killers.
And then he
they
actually
learn that they
liked
like it. Yeah, they learn that they like it.
He liked the power of it. He liked that person was completely defeated afterwards.
It's apparently killing is like a Pringle or whatever. Like you can't have just one. What is it? A Dorito?
It's most chips.
There was a chip company. Lay's. The slogan is you can't have just one. Was it Lay's?
I think it was Lay's, but they make all those chips. Okay. You know, they make Doritos and all that. They all own. Frito-Lay owns everything.
Large corporation, right?
Yeah, I think Pepsi owns all of those. Pretty crazy. PepsiCo. If you go on PepsiCo.com, you'd be surprised all the food Pepsi owns. It's pretty insane. They got their hands in everything.
Yeah. So a violent side of him that had never made its way to the surface before was soon about to be unleashed on the streets of the unsuspecting city. So let's get into his first crime. Well, not his first crime, I'm sure, but his first serious violent crime to this extent. Yeah. While living in Toronto during the early years of his separation from Janice, Bruce would pursue his first actual relationship with another man. And this would go on and off for about 4 years while their divorce was finalized. Bruce would also begin to establish himself as a self-employed landscaper around the area, as well as his early years in Toronto, catering mostly to older women who seemed completely at ease around him. Yeah, he had a very, like you said, calming presence.
Yeah.
A jolly, round demeanor. Man with a red face.
Yeah.
Santa, if you will.
Yeah, very, very passive, very friendly seeming. Like we talked about at the beginning. That was part of his tools, though. It's part of what made him so unsuspecting.
Right. But at 50 years old, the true monster was about to come out. So rare for a serial killer to start this late.
Mm-hmm. Almost too rare.
Right. Almost hard to believe.
Yeah.
So after meeting Mark Henderson online and engaging in sex with him prior to Halloween night, Bruce would be invited into Mark's apartment to see what costume he had prepared for the night. However, when the two would approach Mark's door to go inside, Bruce would strike Mark from behind with a metal pipe he would sometimes carry around for self-defense. That's no accident there, I keep forgetting that his first crime was straight up bashing a dude over the head with a fucking metal pipe. That's no
the first one
I got
we
a little
know
out
about.
of hand in the bed.
The first one we know about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I guess, yeah.
I'm saying the very first time he got this violent inkling, probably he didn't mean to kill somebody. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe he put him on the verge of death. But like at this point, at 50, he's already ready to take it to the next level, obviously. But it's crazy he was with this guy for 4 years before he whacks him over the head. Right?
This one feels so like impulsive and like out of control. Like the details of it as they approach his door to go inside. I'm assuming there was no one inside, right? Why would he not wait another 3 steps until the door is closed and bash him in the head in the house? Why do it on the fucking doorstep? I don't know. It was bizarre. And then he leaves him. He struck him multiple times, fracturing his skull and injuring his hands as well from defensive wounds.
Yeah.
Not knowing is this a level of like hatred for himself and his gay lifestyle, and he's taking it out on another gay man. We see that from time to time.
I guess maybe some stuff stirred up from his childhood. He started to remember all those awful things that was said to him, and maybe he hated himself and then saw this guy as someone who was bringing out the worst in himself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's weird, right? Because it seems as though he planned to kill this dude on his doorstep and then leave.
And the
which
way
he nearly did. He nearly did. It's amazing this guy survived.
And the way he does it, like almost every other victim was asphyxiation of some sort.
Yeah.
And then this guy, like I said, a guy he was with for 4 years, Lauren. That's what blows me away about this. It's not like he met him at a bar and then that night attacked him. Like that's serial killer behavior. But 4 years, and then all of a sudden you just whack this guy with a pipe one day? What happened? Dude.
Yep.
Maybe he just wanted to get out of the relationship. Maybe he felt stuck. I don't know, man. It's weird.
Yeah. Was this for sure the guy that he was with for 4 years?
Yeah, it says he was on and off. He was on and off with this guy for 4 years. Where do you see that at? Right here. Bruce would pursue his first actual relationship with another man. This would go on and off for about 4 years while the divorce was finalized. So maybe that's why it wasn't like taken very serious, because maybe it was just somebody he was hooking up with. Maybe they weren't really together, but it was like for the first couple years, maybe they were just like, I'm kind of lonely or whatever. Hit me up. And, you know, I can't do anything until the divorce is final. I don't want to do anything that makes me look worse. And, like, you know, because during a divorce, if you're doing more things against your spouse, then you could lose more, right? Her attorney might be like, well, because he did this and that embarrassed her, that drug her name through the mud, so now he needs to pay her such and such for this and that. So he had to kind of keep it under wraps for a little while. And then maybe, you know, 4 years after the divorce is completely finalized, now they're living together and he actually is alone with this man for a long period of time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows? It's bizarre.
I have no idea.
But he you know, bashed him multiple times on his doorstep, fracturing his skull, injuring his hands as well from defensive wounds. And not knowing what to do at this point, or maybe thinking he had actually killed Mark, Bruce fled the scene, leaving Mark behind unconscious and bleeding profusely. Mark would eventually regain consciousness and was able to call for an ambulance to come and bring him to the hospital. He would require multiple stitches to his head and hands, as well as 6 weeks of physical therapy following the attack. The day after the attack on Mark Henderson, Bruce would willingly turn himself in, which is a trend we would find throughout this case. He would kind of try and beat the victim to the police and tell his side first and get their trust.
Yep.
And it seemed to work out for him.
Well, like we talked about, he did have a really harmless demeanor. He really looked like somebody who wasn't violent.
Didn't have much of a criminal background at this point either, so the police wanted to believe him.
Yeah,
he had a family and everything else.
A family man, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, a godly man.
Uh-huh.
Claiming to have no memory of the attack as well, and no plausible idea for why he had committed the act on Mark, was his story to police. So he basically said, I don't know why I did it, or I don't even remember doing it, but somehow you're going to police to tell them. Why turn yourself in if you have no memory of the attack?
Mm-hmm.
He would also, you know, basically let them believe that he did it maybe because of poppers at the time, you know, a drug that was pretty popular in the gay community during the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Which
what
gives
is this,
you
like
a temporary high.
Or is it like
it's amyl nitrate. It's like it gives you like a head high and a head rush, and it increases your heart rate and stuff. I looked into it a bit.
Okay.
It gives you just like this, you know, temporary high apparently.
Yeah. It's like a big time upper, kind of like cocaine-ish, I guess.
I believe so. So police, you know, theorized that maybe that may have had something to do with it, that he was on those, which is not out of the realm of possibility. Maybe he was, but
yeah, you never know how
a lot of people do them and don't bash people over the head with pipes as well.
That is also true. That is also true.
So Bruce would plead guilty to charges of assault with a weapon as well as assaulting causing bodily harm. This would land him a sentence of 729 days. However, he would be able to avoid serving any time behind bars after the judge allowed him to serve the first year of his sentence under house arrest. So basically gave him a slap on the wrist. That was followed by 3 years of probation and a few bullshit rules about not visiting male prostitutes, not possessing poppers, and not owning a firearm for 10 years.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not really that strict of probation, honestly.
Right.
Because, you know.
So a year of house arrest and then basically quit being crazy, quit living this lifestyle or whatever.
Yeah. But you can still
quit
get people
dealing with sex workers, no drugs, and no guns.
Right.
Yeah. Nothing in there about going to gay bars or anything, obviously. Judge can't tell him not to do that. That's his own lifestyle. So this charge would eventually be expunged from his record in 2014, which is unfortunate because it would have been nice to have that record of him violently assaulting an innocent man just 4 years before he really dives into, just a few years before he's diving into serial killing full time.
Is this a Canada thing? I mean, or do you think this? I just don't think an attack
to expunge
this
it so
violent,
quickly.
Yeah, I don't think an attack this violent gets expunged at all in the U.S. I feel like you're never getting that off of there unless you know somebody.
You probably shouldn't. You probably shouldn't.
You shouldn't. You beat a man and left him for dead.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a miracle he's still alive, honestly.
Absolutely.
You in all intents and purposes,
it should have been attempted murder, really.
You tried to kill him. Yeah.
It should have been attempted murder.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. An assault that bad, an armed assault that bad.
Yeah.
No signs of trying to defend yourself. No signs of self-defense on his part. So yeah, man, that something that bad can't be expunged. Just like a rape. Rapes shouldn't be expunged. You know what I'm saying? Ever.
Right. In the years following the attack on Mark Henderson, Bruce would become a regular in the Toronto gay village scene, frequenting visiting bars and nightclubs around town and continuing to try and hook up with younger men. He would sign up for numerous gay dating apps and would begin listing his interests as rough sex, BDSM, and submissive men.
He's trying to be a master or a dom, right? Yeah, trying to be Master Bruce.
Yeah. It would also be during this time period that Bruce would set up his landscaping company, Artistic Designs, where he would not only work alongside current sexual partners, but also some of the men who would eventually fall victim to his hidden rage. Very much also reminding you.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
I'm sorry.
Don't you say it.
Yeah, but old JG, baby. Had his employees working for young employees working for him. Landscaping company.
It's so true.
He had a contracting company.
Everybody's thinking it. It's so Gacy, man. It is.
It is. He's the Canadian Gacy. He didn't kill as many, but he was on a warpath to do so before he was caught.
Yep. But he did bury them around his property.
Gacy had the advantage of the era. Gacy had the 70s to work with, whereas this dude's working in the 2000s, where there's just so many more ways to get caught now, you know. And we're so much more aware of serial killers now that when a few bodies pop up with similar tendencies, they're immediately connected as a serial killer, whereas Gacy was just kind of flying under the radar for years.
Oh, yeah. And killing at will. Being a pillar of the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think this about wraps up part one of this two-parter here.
Right on.
Bruce McArthur, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty in part two and get into a bunch of disappearances of men who were many of them living double lives, many of them having families, as Bruce once did, and they start disappearing. People in the gay scene in Toronto start yelling at police saying you need to investigate these. They're lackadaisical at best in the investigations, and we'll get into all of that. And eventually him getting caught about as red-handed as you could imagine, with a duct-taped bag over a man's head in the act of sex.
And we're talking pretty recent, guys. We're talking like in the last decade, 2010, these started. Yeah. So this is not...
And he was caught in, 2017? So
yes,
5 years ago. When we were doing this podcast, he got caught.
I know, that's crazy. That's crazy. But it just goes to show, man, it's just crazy that type of prejudice, that type of issue within the police department was still happening in a city that had such a large gay population in 2010. I mean, or in 2015 to 17. Like, it's just hard to believe. It's easy to write that stuff off 70s, 80s, but 2010, come on now. Like, it's just
we'll get into their investigation. We'll get into whether we think that it was maybe overblown by the public. Maybe they were doing their jobs, but people just weren't happy. They wanted more done.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're going to dive more into our research into the second half of this case next week.
Absolutely.
And we'll give our conclusions on whether the public outrage was warranted or whether it was overblown and the police actually did do their jobs. It's not easy, investigating multiple homicides and connecting them to one person and getting enough evidence gathered up to get a conviction and all of that stuff. It takes time, no matter how hard you're trying.
But I think what angered the public was the consistency in victims, right? These victims looked the same. They had the same type of lifestyles. They were the same. Most of them were the same nationality or pretty, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that is what really irritated people. When you start having all these victims in the same area and they look alike, it's like, come on now. Nobody wants to say that. Right. Nobody wants to say the S word, but we got a serial killer going on right here. And it's just, I think that was the hesitancy. Like, we don't have serial killers like this in 2010. Like, get the fuck out of here. But in reality, he was one of the last ones. Who was that? Who was the guy, Little? What's his first name? The guy that just got convicted not that long ago. We need to cover him as well. He's another one that was still working.
Samuel Little, right?
Samuel Little was still working well into the 2000s. Another
confessed to killing 93 people.
93 people.
93. I think he has the highest kill rate in U.S. history, right?
If it can be proven.
And probably not by a small margin either. That's a lot. That's an unbelievable amount.
That is,
Randy had an unbelievable amount, and he was like, 60 or something like that?
I was going to say, Randy Kraft had like 70 something on that list, I'm pretty sure. I want to say he had like 72, code words on the list, which,
They didn't connect all of them to victims.
No, but they connected more than half.
They were victims.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
To put those on there otherwise.
Right, if you connected more than half of them, what are the rest of them? It's not a shopping list. You know what I'm saying? So...
Yeah.
Yeah. Old Samuel Little though. We should get into him eventually. Maybe we'll do a Patreon on him.
Right.
I'm sure that's a 2-parter waiting to happen as well.
Yeah.
But well, all right.
Do a 2-parter of Oh My Gaia in your armpits. One on each side.
Yeah, don't just do a 1-parter. Then you're just like, what the
you don't need a single stinky pit walking around like that.
Have you ever done that?
Then you never know which side a person needs to be on. You need to have them on your good side.
Have you ever got distracted, like halfway putting on deodorant and then only put on one pit?
Probably. I have 2 kids, so yeah, probably at some point I have one pitted it.
I think that, but I can't think of a time in particular that I have. I'm like, I usually wear it or I don't. If I forget, I forget completely. And then I'm regretting that immediately in the car. But guys, if you haven't already, replace your aluminum deodorant with something more natural, with a deodorant that is good for you. It lasts all day. It smells amazing. And the best part is you're not putting metals in your armpits, right? If you're using Oh My Gaia. Because Oh My Gaia is an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while still maintaining effectiveness. And at Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients, like we said. And guys, there's tons of scents. We have our own scent, True Crime Pine, as well. If you guys don't know where to start and you love true crime, guys, that's a great place to start. You can check that out at ohmygaia.com. There's also Barbershop, Sailor, Sweet Pea, Pear, Bergamot Amber, Fireside, Honeysuckle, Lumberjack, Leather, Dreamsicle, Coconut, Egyptian Musk, and so much more, guys. And because you're True Crime Guys listeners, you can use the code word CREEPER, CREEPER, and you can get 15% off your order. And that's at ohmygaia.com or at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram. Again, that's ohmygaia.com, ohmygaia.com. You won't regret it, guys. Check it out, and don't forget to use the code word CREEPER.
You also will not regret checking out our Tonic CBD sponsor. Tonic has formulated products using CBD, adaptogens, herbs, and superfoods, and has been working to deliver the most effective, intentional, and sustainable products possible since 2017. Their farm-to-bottle CBD plus botanical blends are uniquely formulated to provide targeted support where you need it most. They have a bunch of different blends depending on your needs: chill, grounded, flex. What's your favorite, Michael?
Gosh, I really like
lately
grounded.
It's been chill for me.
Grounded,
chill really seems to just, it's got the ashwagandha and the lemon balm.
Yeah. Chill is great, but I don't know. I feel like grounded just helps a little bit more with anxiety, and I think it just may be simply because it has the highest level of CBD. It's 1,500 milligrams in the grounded. So that's a great one if your mind races at night, right before you got your head on the pillow.
Settle that shit down.
That's right. Take you a little dose of grounded underneath the tongue. It says to hold it for 30 seconds, but sometimes I'll hold it until it's gone. Like I'll just sit there and I'll take a dab, under my tongue and then just lay back in bed and just let it sit there.
I'm sure it gets into your bloodstream quicker for sure. Give it a shot and go to tonicvibes.com. Use code word CREEPER for 20% off your order. With values rooted in quality, integrity, and sustainability, Tonic is committed to creating plant-based wellness products that are good for the people and good for the planet. Once again, tonicvibes.com, code word CREEPER for 20% off your order. You won't regret it.
Right on. Right on.
What else will you not regret? Checking out our Patreon page for $2 a month or $20 for a year. I mean,
right?
Can you get a better deal than that in today's economy?
No, you can't.
Can't get a better deal.
I think taxes and all for a whole subscription on the $2 tier is $21. Like
for a year.
That's incredible. And then if you want to bump up to the $5 tier, it's $54. You save 10% by jumping on the annual pledge. And on the $5 tier, that's where everything is. Everything exists on the $5 tier. There's so much content going on there every single day. And all of that stuff is mentioned in our outro. If you listen to the very end of every episode now, we're going to put a little TCG kind of an update and let you guys know when everything is released. All those shows on Patreon, you'll kind of be in that loop. From Strange Shorts
just released the new 5-Minute Murder this morning.
Yeah. 5-Minute Murder, they just keep getting better, dude. I noticed you're getting a lot of good feedback on 5-Minute Murder lately. It is amazing, guys. If you like those YouTube channels where they do true crime and they show you pictures and they show you like short videos and it's back and forth between them and the host, you're going to love 5-Minute Murder. That's exactly what Lauren's doing on 5-Minute Murder. And, you know, it's always interesting cases. It's cases that have been, a lot of times, been solved by DNA.
Yeah, it's mostly newly breaking cases, like old solved cold case files, cases that have been solved recently, involving genealogy for the most part. The cases, because every week all you have to do is Google, you know, case solved, and there's endless examples of 40-year-old cases, 50-year-old cases that are solved recently thanks to like Paraben Nanolabs. They're breaking all these cases with genealogy, and I'm bringing all the newest cases that are getting broken to you each week on 5 Minute Murder. So yeah.
Right on. So if you guys are interested in that, like we are, we love seeing that justice. We love seeing these people who thought they got away, you know, get found out by DNA. It's amazing. And then also we have shows like Strange Shorts, where it's very similar to Side Stories. It reminded me of, you know, because you're wearing your Last Podcast shirt. Yeah. You know, Last Podcast, they do a little segment called Side Stories, and that's kind of like what Strange Shorts was. I didn't even know about Side Stories when I started it, but Strange Shorts was different when I started it. And then Andy came on, and he's a big Last Podcast fan and whatnot, and he told me about Side Stories. So I was like, yeah, I'd love to do something like that. So it's kind of just off the cuff, weird things in the news. Some of them are crime related and whatnot. And then, of course, we also have Sandu Stories, which is our basically audio theater show. And we have the Patreon exclusive for True Crime Guys every month. We have Higher Thoughts. I just released episode 10 of season 2 of Higher Thoughts this past Friday. And I got episode 11 in the works now. So guys, there's tons of stuff going on patreon.com, and you may have noticed that our older episodes are slowly disappearing. 50 of our episodes, our oldest episodes, 1 through 50, are going in the vault. They are currently going in the vault right now, day after day, every day a new episode's going into the vault, and then we'll take a break for a while. So
and how do you get the code to the vault, Michael?
That's Patreon. Patreon.com/True Crime Guys.
The $2 tier gets you access to those, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, the $2 tier will get you access to all the Vault episodes. So if you want to start from the beginning, $2 a month, and it will also get you access to all of the Patreon exclusives for True Crime Guys. So basically, if you can listen to every True Crime Guys episode on that $2 tier, and then everything else that we create that's not like these episodes that you're listening to here is on the $5 tier.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, for $2 a month or $20 a year, you can hear every True Crime Guys episode ever made.
Yep.
Basically.
Yep. All the way back from number 1, Randy Kraft.
Yep. All right.
Right on.
Anything else?
I think that's about it, man.
Right on. We'll see you next week for part 2, and we'll really dive into the nitty-gritty, the actual murders themselves, the bodies being unearthed by the gardener, the Santa Claus gardener here.
Santa Claus gardener.
And then all of the controversy that followed with public outrage as to, you know, the police's handling of the investigation and whatnot. And we'll get into all that in part 2. So see you next week. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. Keep creeping.
Keep creeping, guys.
True Crime Guys. In the desert, we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us because you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder, get murder, get murder. True Crime Guys. In the desert, we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us because you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder charming.
From the minds of True Crime Guys, come
TCG Weekly. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to check out all the other programs on the TCG network. Every Wednesday, a new episode of True Crime Guys proper, Strange and Unexplained on Mondays, and Full House Fantasy Football on Fridays to start your weekend. And if those aren't enough, head on over to our Patreon account, where you can have access to hundreds of hours of content, including older episodes and other Patreon exclusives like Strange Shorts, Sandu Stories, Higher Thoughts, and the 5 Minute Murder Show. But until next time, guys, keep creeping. Hey, how do you shut this thing off? You like your mouth, boy.